Some of the most expensive bills you'll ever get in retirement aren't the ones you planned for. They're the ones nobody warns you about. The ones that hide behind doing everything right, saving hard, paying off the house, building a big portfolio. Today, I'll walk you through 7 of them with the latest numbers. One is a house you've completely paid off that still costs you over $21,000 a year. Another never shows up on a single statement, and it might be the most expensive of them all. But the one that catches people most off guard isn't on most lists. It shows up the year after a spouse passes away. Stay with me because for every one of these, there's a way to soften the blow. Here's the thread that ties all 7 together. The most dangerous expenses in retirement aren't the big, obvious ones. They're the costs that hide, the ones you underestimate, the ones nobody budgets for, and at least one that never shows up on a statement at all. And a few of them actually get bigger the better you planned. I'm Mark Fonville, certified financial planner and CEO of Covenant Wealth Advisors. We manage nearly $1 billion for retirees in exactly this spot. Folks in their 50s and 60s and 70s who did a great job saving and now need the income, tax, and healthcare pieces to work together. Retirement income planning, tax planning, and investment management planned as one, because in real life, these expenses don't show up one at a time. They pile on. Let's start with the one most families are sure Medicare has covered and doesn't. Number 1 is long-term care. And let's start with the myth that costs families the most. Quick gut check, by the way. Does Medicare pay for the nursing home? Most people assume yes, but it doesn't. Medicare covers short, skilled recovery, not the long-term day-to-day help with bathing and dressing and eating that we call custodial care. That bill is actually on you, and it's a big bill. Nationally, the median private room in a nursing home runs about $127,000 a year. Assisted living around $70,000. A home health aide close to $78,000. Where you live changes everything. That same private room runs about $85,000 a year in Texas and over $360,000 a year in Alaska. Geography is destiny when it comes to healthcare costs, and the odds aren't small. Around 70% of people who reach 65 will need some kind of long-term care, and nearly half will need paid care at some point. This is exactly the kind of thing we map out on a free checklist, by the way, with our clients. It's in our retirement checklist library, linked below in the description. But let's keep going, because even if you dodge long-term care, the next bill catches almost everyone. Number 2, healthcare. And I don't mean a copay here and there, I mean lifetime total. Fidelity runs this estimate every year. Their 2025 number, a 65-year-old retiring today can expect to spend about $172,500 after taxes on healthcare over retirement. And that excludes long-term care. For a couple, that's around $345,000, and that's with Medicare. And remember, again, that number does not include long-term care we just talked about, or dental, vision, or hearing. Original Medicare covers basically none of those. So the hearing aids, the new glasses, the dental work, that's all on top. If this is already changing how you think about your retirement number, just do me a favor, by the way, and hit subscribe. We break down one of these every single week. Now, healthcare you can at least see coming. The next expense is the one you can't. It works in total silence. Number 3 is the quiet one, inflation. It doesn't show up as a bill. It shows up as the same dollar buying less every year. At just 3% inflation, $1,000 you spend today becomes about $134,000 in 10 years, and around $181,000 in 20. Same lifestyle, bigger number. After a long retirement, 3% roughly cuts your purchasing power in half in about 25 years. The retirement you plan at 65 looks very different at 85. And retirees feel a hotter inflation than the headlines because they buy more healthcare. Here's the proof. In 2026, the standard Medicare Part B premium jumped almost 10%. The Social Security raise that year, only 2.8%. Your costs ran up the stairs while your raise took the elevator. Inflation is slow. The next one is sudden, and it's the one I promised you at the start. Number 4 is the widow's penalty. And this one's less about a new bill and more about how the tax code treats you the moment you're most vulnerable. When one spouse passes away, household income usually drops, often by 30 to 40% because you keep the larger Social Security check and lose the smaller one. That part most people expect. Here's the part they don't. The very next year, the survivor files taxes as single instead of married, and the single tax brackets and the standard deduction roughly cut in half. So you can have less income and still owe more in tax. The tax bill arrives with the grief. Now, I want to be fair here because good planning means telling you the whole story. Some researchers argue the extra tax is often small, under 1% of income, and that the real blow is simply losing that second Social Security check, not the higher rates. I think that's a fair point, but for households with large IRAs, the squeeze is real. We've seen it happen. I've seen it with my own family, and it's very plannable. So that's a cost that arises when you least expect it. The next one shows up every single month, and most people swear it's already paid for. Number 5, the house. Number 5 is the one most people are sure is already handled. You worked for decades to burn that mortgage, but here's the uncomfortable truth. A paid-off house is not a free house. On average, just owning a typical home in this country runs about $21,400 a year beyond any mortgage. And on the larger homes a lot of you own, it's higher. Where does it all go? Well, it goes to 4 places. First is maintenance. A good rule of thumb is 1 to 4% of your home's value every year, and it's lumpy. The roof, the HVAC, and the water heater all love to retire the same year you do. Second is insurance. The typical homeowner's premiums jumped about 24% from 2021 to 2024, roughly twice the rate of inflation, and it didn't stop there. 3 is property taxes. They don't retire when you do. The average effective property tax rate just hit its highest level since 2020, and reassessments and rising local budgets push the bill up even when your home value is flat. So here's where I want your take. If your house is paid off, are you planning to stay put and age in place, or downsize to cut these costs? Drop, stay, or downsize in the comments, and keep watching because the 4th piece is the one almost nobody sets money aside for. 4th is aging in place. 3 out of 4 people over 50 say they want to stay in their own home as they age. But the modifications to make that safe, a walk-in shower, a stair lift, wider doorways, can run from a few $1,000s to over $50,000 for a full retrofit. Almost nobody sets that money aside, at least in our experience. So a paid-off house still sends you a bill every month. The difference is now your name is on all of it. But the next expense is the sneakiest of all because it never shows up on any statement, and it might be the biggest one on this list. Number 6 is the one I told you about up front, the expense that never appears on any statement. It's the cost of being human. So what am I talking about here? Here's the idea. There's a gap between what your investments earn and what you actually earn, and it's not fees, it's behavior. We buy in when we're excited and prices are high. We sell when we're terrified and prices are low. The exact opposite of what we should be doing. Now, you may have heard this cost investors 4 to 7% a year, super high. You've probably seen that number thrown around. Here's the thing, that number is almost certainly wrong. Serious, respected analysts have picked that research apart. So why? It compared the wrong things, a buy and hold index against what real investors actually did month to month. So what's the real number? The most respected estimate puts the gap, what we call behavior behavior gap at roughly 1 to 2% a year. One careful survivorship bias-free study pegged it at about 1.5%, smaller than the scary headline, but don't relax yet, because here's why almost nobody plans for it. We're all convinced we're the exception. In study after study, the large majority of people rate themselves above average as drivers and as investors. Statistically, most of us are wrong about that. And 1 or 2% a year is enormous over a retirement. Take $1 million growing for 25 years. At 7% a year, it grows to about $5.4 million. Give up just 1% a year to bad timing, and you land around $4.3 million, more than $1 million less. Now, that's a hypothetical example, and for illustration only, not a prediction and not actual client results. No fees, no taxes, no withdrawals, just to show what 1% does over 25 years. So here's your next step. I put together a library, a retirement checklist that walks through all different facets of retirement, including retirement expenses, income, your portfolio, and other areas as it relates to retirement. It's free, includes 15 retirement checklists we use with clients, and it's the first link in the description below. Grab that one before anything else. And ultimately, the fix here isn't fancy. A written plan you set when you're calm, automatic rebalancing, and someone to talk you off the ledge when the market drops 30% in a month. Use the calendar, not the news. There's one more, and it hits the softest spot at all, and that's number 7. Number 7 is the expense that lives in your heart, not your spreadsheet, your family. For a lot of retirees, the kids never fully leave the payroll. About half of parents with adult children are still giving them money, on average around $1,500 a month. That's roughly $18,000 a year quietly leaving your plan. And it can run both directions all at once. The same retiree writing checks to a grown child is often helping an aging parent too. That's the squeeze of being in the middle, right? In your 60s. We love them. We want to help. But here's the line we hold with clients. Help with whatever's left after your own plan is funded, not before. Because your kids can borrow for almost anything, as much as I hate to say it, you can't borrow for your retirement. So let's bring it home. The thread through all 7 is simple. The expenses that hurt the most in retirement are the ones that hide. Long-term care, the survivor's tax squeeze, the house you thought was free, and the quiet gap between what your investments earn and what you actually keep. But here's the good news. You didn't do anything wrong, and not one of these is an ambush if you see it coming. A long-term care plan, maintenance reserve, and an insurance review, a written investment plan you actually stick with to when markets get scary, survivor planning done before you ever need it. That's the whole idea behind planning your income, taxes, and investments as one. If you want to pressure test your own plan against all 7, that free checklist is in the description. That's the place to go or to start. If you want to explore what it's like to work with my firm so you don't have to worry about retirement, just click on the link in the description below to request a free strategy session. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks so much.